Okay, we are back to answer more questions about Bethyl and Team Delusional and all things Beth and Daryl. And we are going to jump right in. I am recording these on September 30th, which is the day before episode 4 of the Daryl Dixon spinoff drops. So just keep that in mind. Anything we learn there will not be reflected in what I'm saying here. All right, let's jump right in. So Bethy Green, hi there, says, so I assume you and your other theorists have noticed this before and maybe even have talked about it. And if so, I'm sorry, but I need someone to talk about it. But in Coda, when it pans to the cops after it happens, you see Daryl's head bob up at the bottom of the screen because he's on the floor with her. It makes me sob every time. Yeah, I have talked about that briefly, not for a long time. It took me a while to realize that. I mean, it took me watching it over and over again to realize that he actually does lean down over her. And which is super sad, of course. I agree. It's way, way sad. But it's also really odd that we don't see it up close. So it's kind of like the fact that it doesn't show her face after she is shot. It's kind of like, it's like they go out of their way not to show us those things. And I always say this. I'm usually talking about the fact that they're vague about what Daryl's feelings for her were. They like to say right after it happened that, and the writer said this, and Norman said this, a lot of them said this, that if he had romantic feelings for her, he didn't understand them. And that alone makes me think that their relationship is going to come back into the story, because it's suggesting that at some point he will understand them, those feelings. And it would be far more tragic if she really were dead and not coming back to say he was in love with her and he lost her. It would have been far more tragic to show him, up close, his expression, what he was doing when he picked her up off the floor, to see his body language, to see that grief. And we didn't see it. They very specifically did not show it to us. Why? If they wanted it to be the most tragic thing in the whole universe, they would have shown us that, okay? And instead, they make it so that it feels unfinished, and they suggest that at some point he might understand that he had romantic feelings for her, even if he didn't at that point. So this kind of falls into that same category. They should have shown us that, and they didn't. So yeah, it's super tragic, and you have to watch really closely in order to see it, but I think at some point we will see it, because we also have these pictures that were released that we never saw in Coda, where Maggie approaches him when he's holding Beth, and we see her right up next to him, like fall onto her knees, and she's touching Beth's arm, I think, and Glenn's right next to her, and we never saw any of that. And most people just chalked it up to a deleted scene or something they filmed but didn't make it into the episode. And of course that happens, but I actually think that we'll see a lot of this, because when they show us the missing 17 days, it's not just from the parking lot to the beginning of 509. I think that they're going to recap everything. They may well show us things that were going on at Grady behind the scenes that we didn't see. And so I think that we're going to see a lot more, even of the timeline that we did see. I think there's a lot that they didn't show us that they will show us. And this could be part of that. They could be keeping that back so that we're not seeing him lean over her. And then they will show it to us eventually. At least that's what I'm hoping. Even if they don't exactly. I mean, obviously there's a lot that we need to see, like those missing 17 days. But I think that this could be part of that. So I completely agree. It's super, super sad. And I wish we had seen more of it. But the fact that we didn't gives me hope that at some point we will. So yes, thank you so much for your ask. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Next one, appreciate the video reviews. Thank you. I have really enjoyed the first 3 episodes. On another note, I read today in Revelation 21 about a bride, and it says of her, her light is like a stone, most precious. Bet you can guess what kind of stone. A jasper stone. Ooh, interesting. Maybe I'm stretching, but you never know with these writers and showrunners, and coupled with the words light and bride. Yeah, no. I completely agree. I mean, we know that these writers use a lot of symbolism, and they use a lot of it from a lot of different cultures. They definitely use a lot of biblical symbolism. They use pagan symbolism. They use cosmology. They use myth and legend. They use all kinds of things. But Gimple is a practicing Jew. He's very religious, and the Bible is big for him. So absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that the jasper stone may be biblical. I don't know that I've ever considered that before. I mean, jasper is green, so it made sense as a Beth symbol. And he was out on the road and he kind of stumbled across it. He was searching for it. He was looking specifically for something. It was in the show. It was for someone who wanted some jasper for her husband's gravestone, I think. So it was something random, but the point is he was searching for it. He stumbled upon it, and then he proceeds to look at it like it is his lifeline. He's staring at it like he's in love with the stone. And it seems kind of random, but I think it was intentional from a symbolic standpoint. So I actually love the idea that the jasper could be a biblical reference, and especially a reference from Revelation, and, you know, like you said, a bride reference. That's really fun. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. And then, of course, there's what Norman said about Beth for Daryl, that she was this little light in the dark for him, and then he had to watch the light go out. But that doesn't mean that the light can't be rekindled, right? And that's resurrection symbolism, too. So thanks so much for sending that in. I'll research that a little bit more. Okay, can you make a video deep dive of all the symbolism of why Beth and Daryl are soulmates? You could break it into parts. Yeah, that I will try to do that. Honestly, I don't know that I'll get to it before the first season of Daryl Dixon is over. It's just really monopolizing all my time right now. But I will definitely do that. Maybe I can get with my fellow theorists so that we can, because chances are there's so much of that I'm going to end up forgetting stuff. But yeah, I will definitely put that on my list of things to do. That'll be fun. Next one. Emily went to Paris before or while season 1 was being filmed, right? So she should be in the season, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, it was... So this is what's interesting. She was in Paris. She took a picture with the Mona Lisa, which is really interesting because that's at the Louvre, and we know that they are still filming at the Louvre, and that part of the story is going to take place there. So we always thought of that as kind of a hint. It doesn't necessarily mean she'll be in this season, like you said, hopefully. But here's the other thing, though. She was visiting there before the official filming for Daryl Dixon season 1 began. But I say official because I think very often people are filming outside of the official filming window. I just think that's the way the Walking Dead universe rolls. You know, they give us official filming times, and it's almost a distraction because they want people looking for clues then. They want people looking for leaked scenes and spoilers. And I'm not saying that they aren't filming during that time. They are. But if they're giving us an official filming window, then nobody is looking at them thinking they're filming at any other time. So there's a good chance that Emily was filming while she was in Paris, and nobody was thinking that, nobody was looking for that because they weren't, you know, quote unquote, officially filming the first season. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't filming while she was there. So again, we can't say for sure that that means she'll be in season 1, but at the very least, her being in the Louvre feels like a hint. And then I don't know if you guys remember this or how many people actually watched The World Beyond. I would really recommend you watch it if you haven't. Even though I know it doesn't have Daryl in it and it doesn't have all our favorite characters in it, it's actually really good. I was impressed with it, with how good it was. And I did get to know and love the characters that were in it. But they also have a lot of symbolism and a lot of hints in that show. There's a lot about the CRM, of course, and Jadis is in it. But they have a lot of hints toward the Louvre. Like really on the nose stuff about the Louvre in that show. And so then even though it's a completely different show and it doesn't feel like it's terribly connected other than the CRM element and Rick, which, okay, is a pretty big connection. When they came out and said that, you know, the Daryl show was going to be in France and then they're actually filming at the Louvre, we instantly jumped on that because they had talked about it in The World Beyond. So there's something that's a big deal about the scenes and them filming at the Louvre, okay? Because it's been talked about outside the show. We've seen them talk about it. Norman has talked about it. It was hinted at in The World Beyond, which is a different show. It's a spin-off. And then all of a sudden we have Emily at the Louvre taking a picture with the Mona Lisa. It just feels like way too big a coincidence to not be a thing. So obviously we don't know for sure, but I agree that that's really, really suspicious. And we hope that it means that she'll be in season 1. Let's hope that if they have the Louvre in season 1, that's where we get a really, really big hint. If not, you know, I'm perfectly okay if she outright shows up there too. You know, that would be fantastic. But hopefully, either way, let's put it this way, even if she doesn't show up at the Louvre, trust me, we're going to be doing all kinds of analysis on the symbolism there. All right? Okay. So I've always been a believer of TD, but I had a dream today, and it was that they gave her back to us. I've never once had a dream like this before. She's definitely coming home soon. Well, maybe not home, but you know what I mean. I do know what you mean. And I do believe that dreams are important. I'm somebody who believes in dreams. And even if, you know, it's true that we dream about what we're thinking about, but even so, I think if a lot of people are dreaming this, then I think that's significant. I think it's important. So thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, so this is a 3-parter. Hi again. Your point Your points on Robert Kirkman were very helpful. Thanks for expanding. Just in case you haven't seen those receipts in a while, I sent over his comments on Beth and Daryl's romance before season 5 had aired. Sorry, I can't add a proper link. I'll leave those in the YouTube comments section. Kirkman said, they're growing close just as anyone who is stuck in that situation would grow close. Now, whether or not it's going to evolve into a romantic relationship remains to be seen. They've already been separated, so my hopes for that to happen are pretty low. There's a slim chance of that relationship coming together, and it continues the narrative of poor old Daryl is unlucky in love. And number 3, I definitely wouldn't read things to be too romantic. I think that Daryl, for all his sex appeal, is incredibly introverted, and I don't think that he really looks at things in that light. They're forming I don't know that it's necessarily quite brotherly, sisterly, but they are forming a very strong bond that is going to be, they're forming a very strong bond between the two of them. I don't know how much you want to read into that, but there might be something there, you never know. Okay, so people read this and they think that he is denying the romance, but this is exactly what I'm saying, guys. He's not actually doing that. I understand why it sounds that way. I really do, but you have to look really carefully at what he's actually saying here. First of all, the fact that he is saying it's a possibility, I mean, if nothing else, that confirms the fact that there was something romantic there. Because if they were never going to go that way with it, as other shippers we all know and love claim, then he wouldn't be saying that. He would just say, no, that's not where we're going with it. And you know what? There's a precedent for this because, yes, I know that they tease Donnie and they tease, different things like that. But I always am quick to point out that it's not the writers that do that. It's the other actors who do that. Like Lauren Ridloff teased like a shower scene between Daryl and Connie. And that was just her being goofy and having fun and trying to get reactions from, she knows about the shipping wars. She's trying to stir things up. I get that. But that came from one of the actors. It did not come from the writers. It did not come from the showrunners. And we've never seen the writers or showrunners say something that on the nose that ended up not being true. Sorry. The other thing is that I know that there was a time, and I guess this came from Emily, so it was an actor too, but after, in season 3, after Rick and Daryl rescued Maggie and Glenn, remember that Beth went up and kissed Rick on the cheek, and people started asking if her and Rick were going to get together. And Emily, I don't know how much she knew about Beth and Daryl back in season 3, but I think at the very least she knew that was not happening. It was not going to be Rick and Beth. And she flat out told people that. She was like, no, I don't think that's where they're going with it. So they can be very honest and direct when it comes to something that they definitely don't want to happen. Now, another example of this would be, and maybe this is a much better example actually for what's going on. Right before the season finale of, I want to say it must have been the second season of The World Beyond, one of the actors who played Silas kind of teased that we might see Rick in the season finale. And it was just something he said, like, oh, maybe Rick will be there. You know what I mean? He was just goofing around. And Rick did not show up, obviously, in the season finale of that. But people started asking Gimple about it. Okay, Gimple, the writer, the creator, the showrunner, the one that would know. And Gimple flat out said, no, Rick's not going to be in it. And the reason he said is because he didn't want to get people's hopes up for something that was not going to happen. And he just said, look, that guy was just goofing around. We didn't tell him to say that. Rick is not going to be in it. And I don't want people to have an expectation that is incorrect. Okay? So that's what I mean. Yes, I get that they tease things sometimes. But when they tease in that way, that's how I always know it's probably not going to happen. As soon as Lauren Ridloff started saying the thing about the shower scene, I was like, nope, not going to happen. We don't even have to worry about this. Because when they tease it that way, it's usually they're saying the opposite of what's going to happen. When they're very direct and very stern and saying something is not going to happen, then I believe them, okay? So this is Kirkman, who everyone thinks hates Beth and hates Bethyl. And I don't know whether he does one way or the other. But he's confirming that there is a possibility of romance here. And that tells you that that is what the writers were thinking about, okay? And he says, now, whether or not that's going to evolve into something romantic remains to be seen. There's a pretty slim chance of that relationship coming together. And it continues the narrative of poor old Daryl being unlucky in love. Guys, I'm telling you, Kirkman already knew it was going to happen. I mean, maybe you already figured that, but I say it in order to show that they did not suddenly just decide to kill her off in season 7. This is something that was planned, I'm sorry, episode 7. That's what Emily said, is that in episode 7, when they were filming Cross, she found out she was dying in Coda. Okay, not true. It is a lie, because clearly they were thinking about this beforehand. They were going for this when they were writing Still and Alone, those episodes. They already knew that there would be a romantic vibe there, and that there would be a very slim chance of the relationship going canon. And it's interesting to me that he says and, not but, okay? And that slim chance, that narrative will continue the pattern of Daryl being lucky in love. He already knew what was going to happen, okay? I'm assuming that this interview was given right after Alone, because he said that they've already been separated. But it was a long time before Coda, and he already knew what was going to happen in Coda, okay? Then we continue on. I definitely wouldn't read things to be too romantic. I think that Daryl, for all his sex appeal, is incredibly introverted, and I don't think that he really looks at things that way, or in that light. This is just another way of them saying, which all the writers did and Norman did afterward, that he was too emotionally inexperienced to really sustain a romantic relationship at that point in his growth. And if he did have romantic feelings for Beth, he didn't understand them. So think about it in that context, what he's saying. I wouldn't read things to be too romantic at this point, because Daryl's not thinking of it that way, because he is introverted and doesn't look at things in that light. They're forming a very, I don't know that it's necessarily quite a brotherly-sisterly bond. So people heard brotherly-sisterly and they freaked out and said, Kirkman's saying it was a brother-sister relationship. He's such a jerk. He hates Bethyl. No, he says it's not. Okay? And I know that there's a little bit of an implication there, but it's not necessarily a brotherly-sisterly, but they're forming a very strong bond. Okay? So, and then he says, I don't know how much you want to read into that, suggesting that maybe we should be reading into it, but there might be something there, you never know. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Kirkman was not hating on us as a ship, okay? He was hinting at what was going to happen in the short term, that this is not going to turn into some huge blossoming romance for Daryl right then and there, okay? But there might be something there, you never know. So this is why I always say that even though I understand people's emotions on it, I understand why people react to Kirkman the way they do, if you really look at what he's saying in the context of what we now know, he wasn't hating on us. He was trying to very carefully, without giving things away, hint at what was happening in the short term. And also kind of confirming the romance angle, guys, I gotta say. So anyway, thank you for bringing us this conversation. These lines from from Kirkman, I haven't read them in a long time, and it's really fun to go back and read them now, because every season of every show or spinoff that comes out, we learn a little bit more. And so, of course, we didn't know everything back then. We didn't know everything they were planning. And now, in hindsight, we can see it a lot more clearly. So thank you again for sending these in. Okay, let's wrap it up there for today, and I will be back tomorrow with more answers. Bye.